My name is Todd May, and this is my final video project for Health 530. The name of my intervention is Hoops for ADA, the American Diabetes Association. My setting is in the school. My health focus is diabetes education for kids in Southern West Virginia. My target audience is grades kindergarten through 5th grade. A little bit of description of my intervention for my stakeholders. The purpose of this intervention is to educate kids in Southern West Virginia about diabetes. My motivation for this intervention is due to the fact that I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes at the age of 33, and I had not been educated myself about the dangers and symptoms of type 1 or type 2 diabetes. I knew what diabetes was, but I had no clue that I was at risk at the age of 33 because of my diet, my lack of exercise, and allowing stress from my job to impact me and allow these factors to put me at risk. With me being a basketball coach and a former teacher, I think the best way to educate kids about diabetes is tied in with the game of basketball. I feel the best way to do this is part of a physical education class that teaches the game of basketball starting with the fundamentals, and also ties in diabetes education and how basketball can help reduce the chances of type 2 diabetes, and how type 1, also known as juvenile diabetes, can prevent some kids from participating in sports due to their body's inability to produce insulin. So I hope to educate those kids as well that have type 1, how they can participate in basketball and other sports as well. The length of this intervention will be about 20 days, with 12 of those days being dedicated to basketball and the other 8 dedicated to diabetes education. My desired outcome is to educate kids in grades K through 5 in what diabetes is, the difference in type 1 and type 2, and how as a type 1 diabetic you can still participate in sports such as basketball, and how as a type 2 diabetic, along with diet, education, stress reduction, and exercise, that type 2 diabetes can be overcome. Part 2 of my presentation is a needs assessment of the target audience. K through 5 children in a physical education school setting in Southern West Virginia. Education of children about diabetes and the difference in type 1 and type 2, and how to prevent type 2. One of the main resources I used was www.diabetes.org. My action plan for the intervention strategy. First off is the setting, mode of delivery, and timeline. This will be done in a physical education class, the teaching of basketball fundamentals and skills, and the education of types of diabetes. This section will be covered in 4 weeks, as I mentioned earlier, with Monday, Wednesday, Friday being dedicated to basketball, and Tuesday, Thursday dedicated to diabetes education. Some of my goals and objectives. At the end of each week, we'll evaluate we'll evaluate what we have learned from the basketball standpoint by teaching each child on the factory drills. By testing each child on the factory drills, which I'll demonstrate later. The factory is a set of 4 fundamental skills that include dribbling, shooting, footwork, and putting all these fundamentals together. These 4 fundamentals will be talked about later, again, as I discussed, and I will demonstrate those. As for the diabetes education, there will be an end of section test to see if the students grasp the concept. Also, we will measure the child's fitness and weight in the beginning and at the end of the section. The framework. To educate children K through 5 about diabetes, difference again in type 1 and type 2, and to do it with teaching of basketball to present it in a fun and educational way. Now I've been asked to identify specific characteristics and logistical considerations. The setting. The setting for the basketball skills will be the gymnasium, and the setting for the diabetes education will be in a classroom. Special situations that may arise, dealing with children who have special needs, from the cognitive to the physical. Each situation will be different based on each individual kid's IEP. Cultural considerations don't really apply. Class size will be between 20 and 25 students. Daily contact period will hopefully be done within an hour time throughout the day, as it is an elementary setting that does allow for some freedom with that. The cost and budget should be minimal due to the physical education classes having basketballs, and we hope to collaborate with the school nurse on some of the diabetes education, which will also minimize costs. Some of the resources, again, are obviously basketballs for the fundamental teaching of the game, but also the websites www.diabetes.org and ndep.nih.gov. Again, we hope to use the school nurse and representatives from the American Diabetes Association to help us. The selection method to create the intervention. Again, a variety of methods will be done. Group teaching of basketball fundamentals, PowerPoints to educate about diabetes, and videos as part of the sections. Now, the implementation of the intervention. As I mentioned before, this will be done over a 4-week period in a physical education class in K through 5th grade in Southern West Virginia. On Mondays and Wednesdays, basketball fundamentals will be taught and practiced. Week 1 will focus on pivoting, passing, and footwork, as we can kind of incorporate all these together. Week 2 will focus on dribbling. Week 3 will focus on shooting. And week 4 we'll put those all together. On Fridays, the factory will be our mode of evaluation. As I mentioned before, the factory is a fundamental skill drill that measures 4 specific basketball drills. They are as follows: figure 8 dribbling, the mic and drill, spot shooting, and X-outs. Figure 8 dribbling is a stationary ball handling drill where you dribble between your legs in a figure 8 motion. Mic and drills is a layup shooting where you use your left and right hand and the corresponding correct feet. Spot shooting is exactly what it says. You pick a spot, you shoot from there. And finally, X-out incorporates all: dribbling, footwork, and layups, where you go from elbow to elbow making an X and shooting layups. These will be measured for 30 seconds at a time. So therefore, at the end of each week, we'll be able to tell if the child has increased or decreased in his activities. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, we'll educate children about diabetes. Week 1 will be the introduction of what diabetes is and the difference in type 1 and type 2. Week 2 will focus on type 1. Week 3 will focus on type 2. And week 4 we'll summarize and wrap everything together, and educate how to live with type 1 and how to hopefully prevent type 2. Again, we will weigh each child at the start and finish to see if the children has lost or gained weight in that month period of time. The way we're going to evaluate this intervention, first off, is with, again, weighing the children at the start of the program, the factory drills from week to week, from week 1 to week 4. The baseline ideas that we'll come up with, again, will be on their weight, and the factory drills will take a baseline at week 1 and see where those are at week 4. The process evaluation will be halfway through. We will do a survey to gauge interest and the positives and negatives of the program at that point. And obviously the final outcome will come from a final survey to compare the process evaluation. And analysis, again, weight at the end of the week 4-week program, the factory drills from week 1 to week 2, and a test on diabetes education to see if basic ideas and facts were retained by the students. And finally, program revisions and dissemination. Any changes we'll have to see once the project is finished, if changes need to be made, things added, things deleted, as the case may be. We will present our findings in a conference call to you, the stakeholders, once the results are all the information is gathered, calculated, and broken down. And for the future, if the program is a success, we will tweak and make it better moving forward. And if changes and adjustments need to be made, we will do those things to make sure this project meets its successes. At this point, we will continue upstairs as I will break down the factory drills and show you those 4 demonstrated by myself that the kids will be doing at the end of each week to get their baseline at the beginning and see their progress hopefully throughout the weeks 1 through 4.